What's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Book is entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father at Amazon, Kindle, and Create Space. Link will be in the description box below as usual. Go get it. PayPal link there also. They asked me to put it up, so I put it up. Thank you, everybody, for supporting. But this video, though, is entitled Homelessness Can Happen to Anyone. I see this every few years or few months. There's this Facebook video of this older black man who talks about, a guy called him a bum, and he just said, "God bless you." And he was like, "Look, man, I'm not a bum." And he's like, he tries to go get jobs, but he's not presentable. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't want to be out on the streets. Things happen. And I think, and I talked about homelessness time to time on this channel. And from the time I was homeless, I said that before back in the day. And every time I see it, it always gets at me. Because, a lot of us don't understand how quick you can wind up on the streets, and and it can happen to the best of us to a degree. You get what I'm saying? You could be a smart person and wind up homeless. Like homelessness is not about intelligence per se; it's about money. There's smart people who aren't making enough money. You know what I'm saying? One of my coworkers was talking about this today, where we see a guy at the gym, and I knew a couple of guys were homeless, but I didn't know this particular guy was homeless. And he's like, yeah, they work at this place, but but when he saw the guy outside at a certain time, he realized he had been out there all night. And a gym membership to 24-hour fitness is cheaper than a hotel from night to night. You get what I'm saying? And people forget, everybody can't afford the cost of living in society. So that can happen to anyone. Everybody doesn't have family or family members that will take them in. That doesn't happen for everyone. You get what I'm saying? Some people have family that intentionally do them in. Like, to be perfectly honest, that how I wound up homeless. I was in college, living with a family member, paying room and board, and they told me, we're gonna move in this many months. So get yourself together. And I'm like, cool. 2 weeks later, you know what? We gone. Figure it out. That can, just like that. And but the thing about it is, and I know people, and it bothers me when I because I know of guys who are just playing. Like, I've seen the guys who they're not disabled, but they got a wheelchair, so they play like they're disabled, and then when everybody leaves, they get up and roll a wheelchair across the street, put it behind something, and they just move on. Like, I don't like that. I've seen people who've been at the same spot for years and years and years and years, and begging is like really their gig. So they because they don't want to work. I mean, I even have one of those family members who he's really homeless because he knows he could mooch off a family. He'll tell you stupid for for being a part of the system, but he got to eat off you and sleep off you, and you probably gonna have to buy him some clothes when he with you. Like, I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people who actually have circumstances. Katrina, that hurricane. I had a lot of friends and family members who wound up homeless. That's a natural disaster. You can't, and that was a whole city, but that's rare to the whole city. But same thing with Hurricane Harvey. People went from having a home to being homeless. Some of those people. A lot of people didn't have flood insurance and whatnot. So, and hotels were full. Now you got to just do whatever, right? because you don't realize it can happen to anyone. You know, it's not. Sometimes it's not that you're lazy. Sometimes it's not that you know you're a bad spender and you spent yourself into homelessness. No, sometimes it's just you caught some bad breaks. You know, sometimes the smallest thing, can tip the scales, because what happens when you're dealing with a person who's living from paycheck to paycheck? You know, like I think about that because it's the government shutdown, right? People on furlough. Now, if you got a house or whatever, of course, they give you can talk to them, get an extension, a couple months, this, that, and the third. Some people squat, whatever. But there are certain circumstances where, you know, a person may get behind because of these type of situations, and they can't catch up in time to keep a roof over their head, to keep the roof that's over their head now over their head by the time that they catch up. And it can happen to anyone, and it's sad. Like, some people have children, and you don't know how expensive it is to take care of a kid, and you can't afford a roof over their head. And I say that because I remember when I was very young, my mother had, one of the places we lived, she had a roommate, and there's a little bitty room like in the DMV. I always say DMV, but DC, Maryland, Virginia area, right? And I didn't understand it then. Like, she couldn't afford like an apartment. So me and my mother, I guess she told me years later the lady took us in. I'm sure she gave the lady money, but she took us in, and we was living in that room. Now, if she never met that lady, that room would have been the back of the car. And it can happen to anyone. That's why you sometimes you see these stories in the news about these parents, kids going to school, and the kids learning while being homeless, and this, that, and the third. Because you don't really, a lot of us, whether even if you come from a functional family or a dysfunctional family, and you can leave mental issues out of it. You can people could go to war and come back messed up, and things can happen, like drug addiction. I get all of that. But sometimes normal people have breakdowns, because I've seen it where person can take a tragedy like a death in the family or a death to a loved one so harshly that they get depressed, and they're not cognizant. They don't think about taking care of the necessities of life. That tragedy might have made them not have anything to live for. So what winds up happening is, the world is cold. Nobody's gonna let you. Few people are gonna say, "Man, look, I get it. You going through something. I'm gonna give you your time." No. People don't care. Like, you got the money, you don't got the money, or you depressed, or whatever. Well, you're gonna have to get you're gonna have to get over it out on the street. That has happened. And I think sometimes people forget about humanity, like the human element of, life ain't easy and it's not fair, and sometimes some of the worst things can happen to some of the best people. And the reason I'm saying that is because when a brother was talking, once again, it's like you tell I was about to say bum. You tell a homeless person, just go get a job. It's not that easy. They go in and fill out an application. People don't look at them like, man, this homeless person is really trying. They came here. I know they're homeless, and they came here looking to make a living. People don't look at that anymore and say, you know what, I'm gonna get this person a job just because of that drive. That's a great quality. They just say, oh, you know, you're not presentable. You know, you don't have a phone because you're homeless. How we gonna call you? You know, like you're not you when you hit that level, society to a degree writes you off. You know, that was the funny thing about the story Pursuit of Happiness, right? The movie with Will Smith. When as a father, they were homeless, but he had to keep up the persona of just functioning in society like everybody else, because if he would have let himself look homeless, none of those none of that would have existed. None of it. So I'm just saying this because, you know, I know people don't think it can happen to anyone, but it can, you know, and I know there are a lot of stories, because usually kids are actually the people who are homeless the most, to be perfectly honest. So I just had to put that out there to say, you know, it can happen to anyone. I'm gonna be done with this one. I need to do something that's a little bit more happier right now, because I'm somber. We out.